not so difficult to change a life. You don't have to take on the giant problems of the world. The ripple effects from small acts of kindness are huge and can be earthquake-size ripple effects down the line.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine. Nice to meet you.
I see that we have the same barber.
We do. We do. Your head looks like, have you been out in the sun? Did I see a little redness there? Is that just good lighting you have?
I think it's a little bit red.
Okay. You got to wear sunscreen.
Indeed, I do. So, what's your name?
Scott Fifer.
Scott Fifer.
Yes.
And what is your claim to fame, Scott Fifer?
I have no claim to fame. But if you want to know what I do.
Indeed.
I was thinking of that because I just remembered a few minutes ago. I was like, oh, he's not even going to know who he's talking to. This is all a surprise, right? And I could just say like, oh, this is me and my job title. But I was like, what is it that I really do? And it's a great little exercise because I was thinking, wow, I get to help save children's lives. I get to help visionaries in communities around the world achieve their dreams. I get to make sure that kids across the USA and across the globe get opportunities that they deserve to have. And how great is that? Like, that's a cool job, right?
That is very beautiful.
That's what I do. That's, if I ever get a claim to fame, hopefully it will be because of that and having done it well. But the more conventional answer to that is I run an organization that helps local heroes around the world achieve their visions to help children and young adults in their communities.
Okay, that's magnificent. So what exactly does the organization do?
So we find and vet, we call them local heroes, and they're really people who are in communities around the world who are dedicating their lives to giving opportunities to children and young adults in their community. My organization is called Go Campaign, and we say that the Go stands for giving opportunities. So we find somebody who they might be recognized, they might be a CNN hero. One of our local heroes is a Nobel Prize winner, but most are unsung small people in villages across Africa or South America or scattered throughout the US, working in communities where there are real struggles, and that they are dedicating, sometimes risking their lives to make sure that kids get a fair chance, and just trying to level the playing ground and see the kids from their communities thrive in life. And so we invest in the dreams of those local heroes. We never go in and say, hey, we're giving you a water well, or here's a library, because maybe they didn't want a library or a water well. We talk to them and be like, tell us what's going on. Tell us what your dreams are. What's your vision? What do you really see, for the future of your community, of your country? And we work with them to invest in their dreams and their vision. So we do a lot of listening to people around the world, and then try to use our skills and our resources to help them achieve their dreams so that kids have a better life.
It's an amazing story. I don't know how much you know about me. I'm assuming you know a little bit more about me than I know about you.
That is safe. I have watched the Kindness Diaries more than one occasion, so I'm quite familiar with that.
So people often ask me, how do you determine what you give someone at the end of each episode? And you basically just explained what I do on the Kindness Diaries. Is I will, myself and the crew, it's not, the gift doesn't come directly from me. I and the crew, specifically me when it comes to connecting with them, I sit and I listen to them. And I listen to what they need. I listen to what they want. And they don't have any idea that I'm doing that, right? Because they don't know what's going to happen. But I listen to what they need. You talked about a water well. In one of the episodes in India, we ended up buying a water purifying system for this orphanage. And that simply came from me having a conversation with the guy that ran the orphanage and him just saying, oh yes, the kids, they drink water that's not great. And that enabled me to be like, okay, this is something that clearly they need, because he just told me without him knowing that I was going to help him. He just told me what they need. Yeah.
What's so interesting to me about that is how many people don't do that. How many people don't listen? There's a really funny and interesting story, and I think a very telling story about a charity that went and gave a water well to a village in Africa to a group of women, because they heard that the women walk 6 hours every day for clean water. And so they went in and said, we're giving you a new water well. And they built them a well. And of course, the people in the community wanted to be grateful and said, thank you. And they put in the water well. But then it started breaking down like every 3 or 4 days. And so the organization was still around and they fixed it, or they sent someone to fix it. But when it happened like the 4th or 5th time, they couldn't figure out what's going on with this piece. Why does it keep breaking? And so they hid in the bushes, I believe, and watched overnight, because they're like, somebody's tampering with this. This is the only explanation. And so they watched, and one of the women, or 2 of the women, were actually taking something off of the well so that it wouldn't function. And so the group went to them and said, we don't understand. We gave you this water well because, you said it took you 6 hours to go get water. And it took a lot of coaxing, because the women didn't want to be impolite, and they didn't want to turn down a gift. But they finally said, in short, those 6 hours were the only hours we had away from our husbands. And that's when we got stuff done. That was like the town meeting. Every morning on the way back, we identified what the problems are of the community. And on the walk back, we figured out who was going to handle them and how it was going to be taken care of. So it was a very effective tool for their governance and for their way of life. And having that water well right there took that away from them. Then suddenly their husbands expected them home, sweeping, cooking, and didn't want them to leave to go out. And so it completely ruined their structure. And that's because nobody really listened. It's not like you were listening and you heard they wanted the water well. So great. But so that I use that story a lot because it's our model, and it shows why it's so important to listen, because there's just too much well-intentioned good that doesn't bring the results that one imagines it might.
That's a great story. Let me ask you, what inspired you to do this? I mean, and you clearly have dedicated your life to doing something that I did on a much smaller scale. What inspired you to dedicate your life to doing this?
Well, it was 2 things that came together in my life at the same time. This was 16 years ago when I founded Go Campaign. There were 2 things going on. One is I had been a lawyer in a previous life in New York City. And in that life, I was I did pro bono work as a lawyer because the firm expected that of you. And so I got to do a lot of pro bono work. And then personally, I was granting wishes for like Make-A-Wish and the Starlight Foundation, where you grant wishes to children. And there was a nursing home down the street. I'd go there on Sundays and read the newspaper to the people with bad eyesight, or sing songs with some of the women who wanted to sing songs from the 40s. And it was easy. It's easy to volunteer in New York. There's a soup kitchen. There's something you can find. I had been living in LA. My second career after lawyering was screenwriting, and I was a screenwriter in Hollywood. And I realized just one day, it hit me out of the blue, oh my God, I haven't done any volunteer work living in LA. I wouldn't even know where there is a nursing home. I've been living here 10 years. You have to drive somewhere. I don't really like driving that much. And I was like, what? So I was like, wow, that's not good. So I really was feeling personally guilty. And then it just happened that at that same time, I saw the movie Hotel Rwanda with Don Cheadle about the Rwandan genocide. And I remember when the credits were rolling in that film, feeling incredibly guilty to be, to be an American, because the story was not very flattering for the Americans' non-involvement. And then to personally that I was like, well, I was a voting, I can't claim that I was too young or didn't know about that. I was voting during the Clinton, why didn't I know that story? Because I had nothing about it. So I left that theater feeling very guilty. And so those 2 combined, and I had a month off of work where I was, I just turned in a pilot to NBC, and I had a couple of months where nothing was going on. And I was like, all right, I'm going to make up for this. I'm going to go volunteer in Africa. So that'll make up for the volunteering, and it'll help me educate myself about the continent of Africa. So I'd say I Googled, but it was before Google. I Yahooed volunteer vacation Africa and found a organization that sets you up and takes care of you and makes sure you're safe, and they feed you. And they said, how do you want to help? And I was like, I'm just going to learn, put me wherever you want. They're like, do you want to work with children or animals or women? And I said, I really, it's up to you, wherever I could be of any assistance. And they put me at a center for street children, an orphanage in Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. And that was December of 2005. And it was the best month of my life. I mean, I would love to say that the best month of my life is still in front of me, and I'm still trying to work on that vision, but I say somewhat wistfully, I just can't imagine any month measuring up to that. That really cracked me open in a way that I wasn't expecting. And I think it, just brought out something that was inside of me, perhaps. It definitely changed my life. And so when I came back, I started this organization just to help those 20 kids that I met. That was the only goal. My friends back at home, I was sending emails. They're like, we want to help, but we want the tax deduction. So I started and formed a nonprofit so they could give me money so I could help them. And then the next year, people started saying, well, you've done such a good job helping those kids and taking care of those. I know this monk in Cambodia who's helping educate girls. I want to give him money, but I don't really know how to do that or make sure it's spent. If I gave you the money, could you? I'm like, well, sure. I have the okay, yeah. And then I met someone in a valet parking line, and she's like, oh my God, you have to meet this school teacher in Peru. She's near Machu Picchu, and she's a local Quechuan woman who's dedicating her life to preserving the Quechuan culture and educating kids there who are discriminated against. And I'll have a dinner party for her, and if you could just funnel the money and make sure that I'm like, okay. So it really just organically grew over these past 15 years. And then this, I started to examine what's working, what's not working, and why is there a need for this? I didn't want to just recreate a nonprofit for the sake of it. I was like, there are plenty of nonprofits helping kids. Why is this one different? So we came up with this local hero model, this listening model, and we listen on both ends of it. We listen to the local heroes. What do you need? And we listen to donors. What do you care about? Do you care about girls? I have a list of projects helping girls. Do you care only about the United States? No problem. Here's a group of local heroes I met in the US. So this model organically grown, and now from those 20 kids, I think we're up to 193,000 kids or something. And we've worked in about 36 out of 37 countries, something like that, over the years. So it's been very organic, and that's how it came to be.
As you're speaking, I'm reminded of what you said at the beginning. You said you're giving kids opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was doing the Kindness Diaries, that was really one of my motivations. Was I grew up very fortunate that I had so many opportunities, lots of which I squandered, right? But those opportunities kept coming my way. They kept on coming. They kept on coming. And I've traveled extensively, and I noticed that a lot of people don't have any opportunities. So what I wanted to do in the Kindness Diaries is pretty much what you're doing on an epic level, which is not just giving out handouts, let's say. You're giving an opportunity to someone. And if that person wants to take that opportunity, then great. If that person doesn't want to take the opportunity, then that's on them. But because I had had so many opportunities, I wanted to give it back in some small way. And clearly you're giving it back on an epic way, in an epic way.
It's just the potential, those opportunities, when they meet potential, the ripple effects and the impact is just incredible. There's one of our local heroes works with, he's also a local hero. His name is Albert, and he's from Watts, California. And he he calls himself, he was a crack baby. Like, he was born in a terrible neighborhood I believe his mother was on crack. And he's somebody that you would just sort of, I think a lot of people would write off. They'd be like, well, that child doesn't even have hope for the future, so let's concentrate on somewhere else, because he's never going to make it anywhere. But because one person, our local hero Jamiko, believed in Albert and spent the time tutoring him in math and fractions of all things, gave him the confidence to realize that he was more than, there was more to Albert than Albert knew himself. Long story short, Albert went on to serve in the Iraq War, was highly decorated, saved the lives of many Iraqis and also many American fellow soldiers. He went on to, I think it was Morehouse College, and got a degree. Then he got an advanced degree at Harvard and another one at like Princeton or Yale. And now Albert has returned to the community, to Watts, and he's working with Jamiko, and they're both training kids in a center that we support there. And that to me is just like the perfect story of opportunity. Like, so many people, we write off so many kids. We write off entire continents. We write off entire countries. We write off entire colors of people and shapes of people. But that is just such perfect proof that just one person had to believe in Albert. And now he went on to achieve far greater things than I've ever achieved, and is now came back and give to his community. It's just shows you what's possible when opportunity, meets that moment.
So I have a deep question for you. Are you ready?
I'll try.
What was the opportunity that you were given that inspired you to give other people opportunities?
That's a really good question. What was the opportunity I was given to inspire people? It probably was a series of opportunities, right, over your life. Like it's a culmination of things. It's not always one moment. Certainly as a child, my parents gave me the opportunity to do volunteer work and to see or to hear about it or to know that it was a thing that existed. And I think they didn't do it a lot, but they did it enough. They would volunteer at the church, or they would volunteer on a political campaign that they felt strongly about. And so I think obviously I saw from an early age that, oh, all right, you can, it's kind of fun to give of yourself and of your talents and of your time and help somebody else achieve their goals. So they probably set a very good model for me. And not everyone has that opportunity of having quiet role models like that. And then, of course, just being, I was a screenwriter in California at that time. And so I had the funds to be able to Google or, but Yahoo, Volunteer Vacation Africa, and go on a trip and let my heart be available to crack open like that. And, that's something that not everyone can afford, to go to Africa suddenly to, find themselves. So I think there's it's a series of opportunities that were given in our life. I think everyone they might be on a micro scale, but if we're open to recognizing them, because sometimes you don't see them. I think there are a lot of opportunities that come our way and we don't notice them. But if you're consciously, I'm trying to be more conscious about, being open to all those opportunities that life presents, and to be aware, just be more aware and more conscious, because you'll start to see things that you didn't see before. And you'll be like, oh, here's an opportunity where I could be a nicer person. Normally, I'm very cranky with that person because I don't really like them very much. But here's an opportunity where I don't have to be so cranky today. And then won't I feel, I'll feel better about myself because I was nicer to that person. So I'm trying to, even today, always look for the opportunities that the universe is putting in front of me, whether on a small scale or a grand scale.
So how would you teach someone who doesn't see the opportunities in front of them to maybe see them a little bit more clearer?
I think it might have to do with being clear with what you want in life, and like really having a vision for your future or for tomorrow or for next month, but having a vision and sort of letting yourself and the universe know, hey, this is what I want. And whether it's in your vocation or in your personal life or with finances or love or friendships or community, if you can be have the self-awareness and, even write it down. This is what I would, a year from now, I would love it if this was my life. Or tomorrow, I would love it if this happened tomorrow during the business meeting or during my birthday party or during whatever. Like, this is how I want tomorrow to go. This is how I want next year to go. This is how I want the next 10 years to go. And if you can, the clearer you can be about that, and even dreaming, some of the things might seem impossible. I've achieved some impossible things that I never, that just wouldn't have seemed doable. But because you start to write it down and just be like, no, I would really love for that thing to happen, no matter how against the odds it seems. Then I think you start to notice the little things that the universe is putting in front of you, the little signals to be like, oh, here, do this. I mean, if you had told me 15 years ago I was going to start a nonprofit and quit screenwriting, and I was going to run an organization that works in, over 40 countries, and I may not have done it because it might have seemed overwhelming and maybe not even something I knew. I certainly didn't know how to do it. I'd be like, well, no, I don't know how to do that. It sounds like a nice thing for somebody, but not for me. But because I had a vision of helping these children and then helping more, I was always open to whatever the universe was putting in front of me and trying to recognize those, seeing those. Every time someone, tells me about a local hero they know about, I'm like, well, all right, here's another opportunity where maybe I can play a part and be a better human.
How does it feel to do good? And not to be good, right? But to do good. How does it feel?
I think it depends on the moment. Sometimes it's really hard to do good. It's like it takes a lot of work. It's not always the easiest choice, doing good. It's always the right choice, 100%. But it's not always the easiest choice. So sometimes it could be hard. But when you achieve success in doing good, like when you are really be like, wow, I just did a good thing, that is a very, that's rewarding in a way that nothing else is really. And some people claim that all of philanthropy and the reason people give away money is just to make themselves feel good. And it's a selfish thing. There's a whole stream of, writings and articles about how giving away money to charity and philanthropy or volunteering your time is all very selfish. I have no problem with that. I'm like, if that's the reason I'm doing it, if I'm doing that to be selfish, fine, call me selfish. If it makes me feel good. But it really does. It's when you really connect with the good that you did, and you didn't just do the good, but then you have a connection to it, and you realize you can feel it really deep inside, the change that you were a part of, even if it's just you were a small part of. There's a feeling there that, sometimes you get goosebumps because it's just like, oh, I'm connected to the universe somehow that I didn't know about. It's a very special feeling when you can tap into that. And I think we should all, I try to tap into that more and more whenever possible, just sort of take a moment and try to tap into that energy.
It's like tapping into the energy of oneness. I always tell people that being kind, doing good, same thing really, is a win-win, in that I win.
Yeah.
If I'm being kind to you, I'm going to win, but so are you. What a beautiful thing. Who doesn't want to be involved in a win-win?
Right. Absolutely. I was just talking to a group of our donors, and I said, sometimes, we get in the habit of saying, oh, I have to take my kids to school today, or I have to go to the doctor, or I have to get on a Zoom today. And a friend of mine corrected me, and she's like, no, Scott, you get to go on that Zoom today, and you get to, she gets to go to the dentist, and she gets to take her kids to school, because everything is a privilege, right? Especially after going through the pandemic. And I think that really, hopefully, it certainly opened my eyes and had me re-examine life in a different way. But it's a real privilege and an honor and an opportunity to be able to do these things. And to be able to, I was telling these donors, hey, we get to save kids' lives. And our projects actually save lives. I can show you some kids who would have been dead if this local hero hadn't helped them. And if we hadn't helped the local hero, that's a fact. It's not just a nice saying. those kids wouldn't be alive. So who doesn't want to do that? Like it gives me confidence to ask for people to join with Go Campaign and support us. It helps me because, asking for money and raising money is, no one loves doing that. But when you think about it that way, it's like, who doesn't want to do that? This is a great opportunity for for you to be able to help save kids' lives and to save kids' lives. So it's exactly what you're talking about. It's a win-win situation.
Can you tell me a specific story? You told me one, but can you tell me another one of a kid or kids whose life has been altered in a magnificent way because of what you guys did?
Yeah, there are so many. Well, I'll tell you two, because one can be really quick. The first one is one of those first 20 kids that I met in Tanzania. I'm still in touch with all those kids from 15 years ago, and either by phone or WhatsApp somehow. And one of them, he was from the poorest of poor communities in Tanzania that you could imagine. And his father had passed away and his mother was not in any position to care for him. And he is now in a junior year of college in Washington State, and he's studying Mandarin language and business, and will be graduating in a year, and he's looking forward to going back to Tanzania and being a diplomat and using his language skills to help promote his country and to be a businessman and maybe bring goods and things that East Africa doesn't have that he can import from other countries. And so he's like somebody who he even thinks about it. He'll comment. He's like, it boggles his mind to think about where he came from and where he is today. And also he's very aware of all the people that helped him do that, all the donors. Like I didn't fund his, I asked my friends to donate, and we did that sort of as a side project of Go Campaign. And he's going to change the world. And he's already inspires people now who meet him, and just because of his attitude, and he really recognizes where he came from and where he is now and where he's going. So that's an incredible story of somebody who, he sees his counterparts who are not doing well and living in poverty, and he knows that he's, on the road to success, and that he also wants to go back and pay it forward. Also in that nearby, just about half an hour away in Tanzania, we have just finished building a state-of-the-art center for children with intellectual disabilities with our local hero, Brenda Schuma there, who was a occupational therapist. And when I met Brenda, she was about to close the center. It was quite small. She had like 30 or 40 kids, and they didn't have the funding to continue. And another local hero that we work with said, which was very generous of her, she could have tried to keep me all to herself, but she's like, you need to meet Brenda down the street who's helping special needs kids. And so we met Brenda, started working with Brenda on small grants. That was, over 10 years ago. Now we have just helped her complete a state-of-the-art center. It's probably the nicest center in all of East Africa for children with autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, ADD. And in that region, kids with any kind of affliction like that are considered a curse. They think voodoo's involved. There's a lot of the old tribalism, witchcraft things layered on top of Christianity and Islam there. So people think that either it's contagious or there's devil worship involved. And so kids are often locked away, put to death, really terrible, terrible fortunes. So one girl who was one of those girls who was being hidden away by her parents, because they're afraid to tell the neighbors that they have a child like that, because they don't want the neighbors in the community to look down upon them and think they're involved with Satan somehow. So this girl was hidden away. Brenda, our local hero, was able to find her, identify her, and convince the mother to please come to the Gabriella Center and let us work with your daughter and see what we can do. And after about 2 years, and so the mother was in tears every day because the girl was very, had no attention ability. Like she would start to wash her hands but couldn't finish, or start to eat but couldn't finish. Like she just kept running around in circles all day long, and she couldn't go to school, obviously, because of that. And Brenda's like, let me try to work with her. So after 2 years, they, put her through all kinds of gentle, really thoughtful therapy, and, working with local therapists there. They not only taught this young lady to, calm down and to finish tasks, but they taught her the skill of making popcorn. and which doesn't sound like, any life-changing thing. But it turns out making popcorn can be a life-changing thing. I went and visited her back in her village and saw where she's living with her mother. And the mother now is still crying, but crying happy tears because she can't believe the transformation. And this girl, I saw her make, she popped the popcorn and then she takes the plastic, puts them in a plastic, and then she seals the plastic over a candle so that the plastic seals up, so the popcorn's in a plastic bag. And then they go to sell them at a store, which is about a half a mile down the hill. And they can't even get to the store with the goods because people start coming out of their house to buy the popcorn from the girl because it's a popular snack in East Africa. And so they come out and pay the 5 cents or whatever. And so that girl is now the breadwinner for the family. The mother is keeping the books for her. And the girl decided to use the income to pay for her younger sister to go to school, which the mother wouldn't have otherwise been able to afford. And so that's an example of a girl who was cast aside and was not allowed out of the house and was, tied to a chair just for her own protection, so the mother thought. But now has a whole new, the family and the community have a whole new attitude about what it means to be a special needs person or to have a intellectual challenge. And then they actually look to her and she's part of the economy now. So it's actually helping the local economy. So that kind of story is always, a great reminder of why I like to do what I like to do.
As you were sharing that story, I think two things happened to me. One was I had goosebumps, and two was my heart opened. What a beautiful story. And I guess one of my final questions for you is I just had that experience of my heart opening and feeling pure love, right? How do you, or we, or people in general, inspire people to do good?
I think we can only do it by telling stories, right? I think like what I just told you, that story, and your heart opened. You tell stories on the Kindness Diary and my heart opens and I'm crying during every episode. I think it has to be about sharing those stories to make people realize that it's not so difficult to change a life, and it's not so difficult to do good in the world. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to cure malaria tomorrow. You don't have to take on the giant problems of the world. It's very easy to offer a smile to an elderly person that you see on the street or to a neighbor. It's very easy to take that little extra step about how can I help you today? And it's the ripple effects from small acts of kindness, I don't need to tell you, are huge and can be, like earthquake size ripple effects down the line. I think that's the thing to remember is it's not just the one act of kindness that you're doing or the one good, but the ripple effects that just keep going on for years and years. And the things that this, boy in college in Washington, Leonce is his name, will do in years to come. I'll be dead by the time he's still doing some of these amazing things. And that girl who's selling popcorn, she's still, the fact that she just walks down the street every day and people aren't stoning her or treating her like she's some outcast is amazing. And that will affect another family who's watching her. And so it's all about the ripple effects. And so I think if we just share the stories of the good that is out there, then that too will have a ripple effect on people whose hearts will open, and then they will look for those opportunities that the universe is presenting to them about how they can also do good in the world.
I think that's a beautiful place to stop, because if anyone just listens to the last 2.5 minutes of this podcast, that's where the gold is, right? Inspiring others to do good simply by opening people's hearts through stories.
No better way to spend a day.
Man, thank you so much. It was truly a pleasure, and I'd love to find a way to continue connecting. I mean, if there's any way that I can help, because what you are doing on a massive scale is what I did and what I do on my travels, right? I know why the producers put us together, because your heart and your mission is basically the same.
It is. That's why I watched every one of your episodes, and I felt the same. Definitely, simpatico, and would love to continue to find ways to do good together.
Thank you very much. Let's definitely chat after the podcast.
Pleasure. Thank you, Leon.
Hello everyone, it's Leon here, aka the Kindness Guy. If you like my videos, which I hope you do, don't forget to press the subscribe button and also to ring the little bell so that the notifications notify you that I have a new video out in the world.